Hi, I'm Lauren.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Publish and Prosper,
Where publishing, e-commerce, and marketing collide. We ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Welcome back to Publish and Prosper. We are going to be talking about how to repurpose your book content for social media purposes today.
Yeah. You know, I had this moment recently where I realized that we've recorded a bunch of episodes where we've talked about my last job working at the bookstore.
Right.
And we don't very often talk about what I used to do here at Lulu for like a solid 4 years.
Well, that's because everybody here at Lulu has tried to block it out. So,
including me.
Yeah, probably including you. That's right.
I did actually, as I was outlining this episode, I had this little tiny thought for a second where I was like, oh, I kind of miss doing social media. And then immediately was like, ew, no, I don't. Yeah.
So Lauren is alluding to the idea or referring to the idea that when we first hired Lauren, it was for a social media manager. And she thoroughly enjoyed that position. She loved it. She didn't want to leave it to do what she's doing now, but we dragged her away from it kicking and screaming, and here she is.
I mean, I did say no when you first asked. So.
Did you really?
Yeah.
What? I don't remember that.
At the beginning of it, I was a hard no, and by the end of it, I was like, okay, let's try this.
I'm going to take that as a win, because here you are.
I'm going to take that as a compliment. You're
you
glad that I agreed to do this.
It's a win-win.
You heard it here first, everyone. All right. Anyway, Matt kind of inspired this episode a little bit because of something he did on Instagram. It was a good thing.
What did I do on Instagram?
It was a good thing. So it was like a week or two ago in our time, the Lulu social media or the Lulu Instagram had a post on it that was different like customer comments and reviews and listener comments from the podcast.
Yeah.
And you shared that to your Instagram story and then added a poll to it saying, should we get swag?
That's right.
And I really liked the way you did that. I was like, this is a great example of somebody repurposing content that was created by somebody else, sharing it, getting some engagement on it, and then also using it as a way to touch base with their audience.
Which, by the way, we got 100% poll results that we should do swag for the podcast. So
how many people responded to the poll? Do you know?
Was it
more than one?
Yes.
Okay.
It was more than you, yes. Because it shows me who responds and what their answer is. It was definitely more than you. It was more than I expected, to be honest with you.
Good. I just wanted to make sure you weren't basing that entirely on me voting yes, because I did.
I will say that 50% of the results that were positive for swag were either Lulu employees or friends of ours.
Well, that's because
But the other 50% were people I don't really know as you know, people that work for Lulu or with us or whatever. So that was good.
That is awesome. That is actually something that continues to like delight me every time it happens. So shout out to anybody who is listening to this podcast or watching this that does not know me or Matt personally. Because every time that I see like a comment from somebody or like anything on social media or anything like that from somebody that is responding directly to this podcast, that isn't somebody that I know personally or I know Matt knows personally, I'm like, oh, cool.
Spoiler alert, everybody that's ever responded to this thing, I know them personally.
No, don't tell me that.
I've paid them.
Well, money well spent.
I'm just kidding. I am definitely irresponsible with my money in other ways, but not that.
Same.
Yeah. Most of it's Disney related.
Also same.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. I mean, this is free advice unrelated to this episode coming from a former social media manager. Don't ever pay for followers or listeners or an audience.
I mean, if anybody's doing that at this stage in the game, it's stupid. It's tenfold stupid. Like, I mean, it's as stupid as the valuation that's been placed on OpenAI. Like, it's just dumb. Like, there's no basis for it. Like, don't buy followers. Yeah, there's first pro tip, social media #1.
Yeah.
Don't buy followers.
You're welcome.
And newsflash, everybody knows you bought them if you did.
Yeah.
When you've got 50,000 followers in the matter of a week, and every post you make gets 4 comments and 6 likes, everybody knows you bought your followers, so why bother? And you're not beating the algorithm at all. Like, so just don't do it. It's a waste of money.
Yeah. Instead, find some healthy, organic ways to grow your audience. Like, for example, what we're going to talk about in this episode.
And to be fair, why we're talking about this is also particularly because at this point, it's extremely hard to get any sort of engagement on any social media channel right now. Like, all the algorithms are different. They're all incomprehensible. The only place that I've seen any real engagement lately is LinkedIn, but I mean, no author really wants to be tooling around LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like, that's straight up mostly B2B stuff, but it's a nightmare right now. So, couple that with the fact that you can only create so much content for social media before you get burned out. You might as well turn to your book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially this time of year, the time of year that this episode is coming out, I mean, this is good evergreen content strategy all the time for sure. But especially, as we're getting into Q4 and the holiday season and the end of the year, people are really busy. People have a lot going on. It is not easy to be spending dedicated time every single day on social media creating new content, whether it's because you're burnt out and you're running out of ideas, or you don't have the time, or you're constantly on the go. And it kind of feels like you're shouting into the void right now, which I totally understand. That, it's hard. It gets harder and harder to create content when you're getting like little to no response.
Hopefully this helps people create some more original content and not feel so much burnout, and maybe actually get some positive effects and engagement from the algorithms. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Here's hoping.
We're trying.
Which I think is a great way to jump right into the first thing.
Well, hold on. You're moving too fast.
Okay.
Because the most important question everybody's going to want to know, and they're probably going to comment on if we don't address this right now, is what do your bracelets say today?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay. So one of them is the only bracelet that I've ever made that is two together. It was a failed experiment. It's a double, and it says, "I cry a lot, but I am so productive."
Well, I can vouch for the second part, for the most part. And
the first part is also true.
I can almost guarantee that first part is true, knowing what I do know about you.
Very fair. It is from a Taylor Swift song.
Okay.
And then the other one is also from a Taylor Swift music video. It is Je suis calme, which is, it's one of my favorite intros to a video that is like somebody, this is funny because we were just talking about Panic at the Disco before the episode started.
Everybody, please know I was not having a conversation about Panic at the Disco.
He made one joke and I took it too far because I am an emo kid at heart. And
you will ruin my reputation, my street cred out there if you have people thinking that I listen to Panic at the Disco.
I'm not sorry. So anyway, this is from the music video for the song Me, which is Taylor Swift and Brendan Urie. And the cold open to the video is Brendan Urie telling Taylor Swift, "You need to calm down," and her turning around and screaming, "I am calm," and then storming out the door, which is just the energy that I wish to embody in all things, but it's all done in French for some reason. So it's her screaming "Je suis calme" at him, which I also don't speak French, so sorry.
I was going to ask why, but I don't care.
No, it's okay. But anyway, those are the bracelets.
Got it.
If anybody is listening to this podcast and comes to Author Nation, if there's anybody listening to this podcast who is also going to be at Author Nation, come find me and specifically say that you heard in this episode that I'm going to have friendship bracelets at Author Nation. And I will bring a few friendship bracelets to give to people that listen to this podcast.
Yeah, you buried the lead there. So you're going to have some friendship bracelets that you're going to create.
Yes.
Specifically for anybody who comes up to our booth and mentions that they heard on the podcast that you would have friendship bracelets.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you come up to me, say you listen to this podcast and you heard, or ask me what my bracelets say that day or whatever, I will have some to give out to people. And more importantly, one of the other inspirations for this episode was my girl Taylor Swift in general. So thanks for giving me that bracelet intro.
Should we give somebody a free ticket to Author Nation?
Whoa. I don't know why my brain just went, should we give somebody a free ticket to the Eras Tour? And I was going to say, if you have a ticket to the Eras Tour and you're not giving it to me,
go ahead
I
and
quit.
edit that out. Just edit that out right now because we'll both lose our jobs over that. But let's do this. If anybody listens to this podcast and legitimately wants to go to Author Nation in Las Vegas, November 11th through the 15th, or any of those dates in that week, and you can supply all your own travel and hotel and all of that stuff, which I think they have discounted rates for rooms and stuff where the event is being held at the Horseshoe. I think so too. We will cover the cost. We will get you entry into the event. We'll get you a pass into the event, which will save you, I want to say, somewhere north of $500. Am I wrong on that?
I'm going to fact check that right now, but that sounds amazing.
I think it's...
Yeah.
Is it?
It's, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the first person that legitimately will use it will show up, because you don't want to, take it out of somebody else's hands that would. But the first person that would actually buy a plane ticket, book a hotel room, and join us in Las Vegas for Author Nation, we will cover the cost. We'll get you a pass.
What do you want them to do? Email us?
Yes. No. Yes.
Yes.
Do we want them to email us at podcast@Lulu, or do we want them
so.
to leave a comment on our YouTube?
I think email us.
I think email's right. Yeah, you're better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So email us at podcast@lulu.com.
So the first one to hit our inbox, we'll get them a pass. But again, please don't email us if you're not going to go, because that's just not right for anybody who would have been first and would have actually done it. Yeah?
Yeah.
That sounds fun, right?
That's awesome. Okay.
I hope I don't get fired for that, but I won't. I'm just kidding.
Okay, putting it on record, that was Matt's idea, not mine. Fire Matt, not me.
Well, what's the old saying that stuff rolls downhill? Can I cuss? Because we're on YouTube?
No, I don't think so.
Are you sure?
I don't know. You were the one that said you didn't want to cuss on this podcast at all.
I said that?
Yeah.
Have I not cussed on this podcast at all?
We have yet to drop most. We've had a couple of minor slips, but
I feel like I should be given an award for that. I think you're right. I don't think I've said a single cuss word in 44 episodes.
I mean, I think it depends on your definition. I think there are people that have a less lenient definition of what cursing is than you and I do. So there are a lot of words that you and I would say and have said in these episodes that we wouldn't consider cussing, but other people do.
That's fair.
But in terms of like the big ones that I'm not going to ruin our streak by saying now, we haven't said any of them. And not that we haven't, like,
I don't think I've even said any of the medium to small size ones. Have I?
Maybe like once or twice. There have been a couple that I've had to cut out.
Oh.
But like,
okay.
I mean, even like those big ones, like we haven't even like accidentally said them and then been like, oh, cut that out. Like we haven't said them at all.
I was at an event a week ago in Orlando called Momentum. Shout out Lou Mongello.
I literally already told my friends that I'm not coming to the fundraiser next year because I want to go to that. It sounded incredible. It looked incredible.
A good one. For anybody listening that was at
I'll be there in
Momentum,
2025.
I would love for you to email podcast@lulu.com and tell Lauren how much she missed. But anyways, I don't think I said a single cuss word during my entire presentation, which was over an hour long.
That is very impressive.
But I did have somebody ask me if the reason I had an anchor tattooed on my face was because I had a mouth like a sailor.
Huh. Okay.
And they're not partially wrong there.
Were you in the Disney bubble? Where was the conference?
So the conference was on Disney property. It was at the hotel, the Hilton that's across from Disney Springs, the one that's actually attached by a walkway.
Oh, the one we stayed at?
Nope.
Oh.
That's on the other corner of Disney Springs.
Oh.
There's literally another one on the other corner. The one that this was at was the one that has the Benihana in the lobby.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, it's still Disney bubble. And 50% of the creators and entrepreneurs that were at that event, I would say probably 50%, maybe a little bit more, had businesses or products or, things that were rooted in Disney, whatever. So it was super cool, but all like extremely qualified and knowledgeable. And it was just a really great conference.
I mean, it sounds incredible, but also I wonder if that's why, because for me, that's what, not that I cuss as much as you do, but I definitely am very freewheeling with my vocabulary. And there is something about like the second I get on Disney property, like all those words leave my vocabulary. Like I am never going to in front of a
Not
kid.
Me.
So, okay, unrelated. All right.
Disney does not affect my mouth at all. Like normal. I was being very cognizant of it during my presentation, just because, again, I think that Lou had some people there that definitely probably would not have appreciated where my mouth can sometimes get. But otherwise, no, I'll be on the monorail cussing up a storm if it gets delayed, or, if I'm in the middle of a ride and it stops, like,
Well, that's very considerate of you.
What do you want me to do?
No, I meant at the conference.
Well, yeah. I
don't care.
I mean, I like all those people.
Yeah.
I like Lou. I wanted to be invited back next year.
I want to be invited next year too. So thanks for not doing anything.
There you go. See, I did it for you.
Thanks. God, I appreciate
the
it.
Stuff I do.
Speaking of stuff to do you want to get back to the actual episode topic, or?
Yeah.
This is what I get for springing an episode topic on you.
That's true.
After you've been traveling.
It's your fault.
So sorry.
Yep.
Anyway, let's talk about using your social media or using your book for social media content.
Go.
First thing I wanted to talk about was actually something that Matt gave me a segue to like 10 whole minutes ago. And then we obviously got sidetracked in way cooler conversation. But I want to talk about reusing your own content, like literally reusing your own social content that you have already posted. Because I feel like that's something that people tend to think is like a faux pas, which it's not. I think that maybe that's something that's dying out, like that belief that you can't repost your own content. So hopefully that is. But if you are somebody who still feels that way, let me be the one to give you permission, if that's what you need to hear, that you absolutely can and should repost your own content. Mostly because like the algorithm is nuts right now. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to say, this post didn't do as well as I thought it was going to. I'm going to try reposting it at a different time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm going to jump in real quick because somebody else was talking about this recently that I was talking to, because I used to be of the same stance too, right? I thought part of why I'm not really good on social media, for anybody that follows me, I'm sorry. Part of why I'm not as consistent as I should be or could be is because I've also subscribed to this train of thought that you can't you can't or shouldn't repost content, like the same content or whatever. And so it's like, God, every single time I'm too busy, forget it. You know what I mean? And I'll just lurk or look at Disney stuff or whatever, or comment on other people's stuff. But I was talking to somebody, and at least for me, they raised a couple of really good points. The first one being, the only place people are going to see that your content has actually been duplicated, or you've doubled it or tripled it, is if they actually went to your main page and saw all of your posts stacked next to each other. Yep. Nobody really does that anymore. And even if they do, whatever. It's not like they're going to DM you and be like, bro, what the hell? Oh, sorry, I just cussed. That's not a cuss word.
That's not it. No, I wouldn't count that.
Thank you. Okay.
I am literally wearing a shirt with a Grim Reaper on it right now.
There you
like,
go.
We're okay.
So that made a lot of sense to me. I never thought about that. That people, they really don't go look at, like, I don't. Like, what's in my feed is in my feed, and that's it, really. Unless it's a brand or somebody I'm considering buying a product from, I might go look at their page just to make sure everything looks legit and it's not some fake AI-driven Instagram store, because they're out there. But the other thing they said was, based on the way these algorithms are behaving, and I've seen this firsthand, everybody has too, there's no guarantee that anybody saw your first one.
Yes.
So reposting that same content, maybe with a slight twist or maybe even not, chances are the same people aren't going to see it again. That's just the way things work, and we don't have a lot of control over that. So when I heard those two things, it made a lot of sense to me, and now I feel a little bit better, and I'm going to try to be a little better about posting, but
yeah, because I'm the same way, or I was the same way for a really long time. I feel like it's the same thing as like being an outfit repeater, which was definitely something that Lizzie McGuire was accused of being an outfit repeater when I was like 12 years old, and that has lived rent-free in my brain ever since. And like, this is the kind of that same principle of like, oh no, I can't post the same thing. I can't like show the same thing that I've already shown people. Like, that's ridiculous. And it's really not the case. It really isn't. And it is, like Matt just said, if it helps you a little bit to ease yourself into it by trying to like frame it in a certain way, maybe there are always ways to do that too. You can do something like, this time last year, this is what we were talking about, or last month, last week, whatever. you always see things that are like how it started versus how it's going. There's one I'm pretty sure the Lulu Instagram right now has a post that is how it started versus how it's going about this podcast specifically, and showing us like in this undecorated room with boxed up equipment. And then like, here we are now, almost a year later. There's ways that you can do that. You can also do like roundups or compilations. These are some of my best posts. These are some whatever. Or even like if you really, depending on what kind of content creator you are, this is probably better for nonfiction or content entrepreneurs or people that are in that space than it is like fiction authors. But I've always found it really interesting when there are people that I follow in like the marketing industry that I see them flat out say, hey, I'm A/B testing, like trying to see whether my posts perform better when I post them in the morning, at night, weekdays, weekends, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I've been posting the same content at different times throughout the day and looking to see which ones get more engagement.
Yeah.
I've always found that really interesting when I see people outright talking about that. And in fact, that might have like super work in your benefit if you know.
Super work?
Yes. Extra super duper work in your benefit.
Okay.
Because it might give you a reason for people to come back to your page.
Yeah.
If you're saying like, oh, I'll share the results, I'll let you all know, at the end of this week, whether I like what the results of my like mini experiment were. So like come back if you want to know whether I had better results posting in the afternoon or the morning or, varying it up or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's actually great content in general though, or a great content tactic, which is to post something that requires a follow-up from your followers.
Yes.
So again, survey content, things like that, like that's why polls and surveys and other types of content are great, because they do want to come back. They do want to see, what the results were.
Yeah.
They will keep their eyes open for that results post. And if they don't see it, they will seek out your account to find out what those results were. People get invested in those types of things. So that's great content to use just in general.
Absolutely. Anything that's going to bring people back to your page again.
Yeah.
Which is even like Matt was saying earlier with the nobody's going to notice that you're reposting the same things unless they go to your page and they see like your grid and they see that you've posted several things.
Grid. That was the word I was looking for. Grid.
It took me a second there too.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say FYP and then I was like, no, that's the exact opposite of that. And also TikTok and not Instagram.
That's right.
But if people are looking at your grid thoroughly enough to notice that you've reposted the same things over and over again, you've already got them to do what you want them to do. They're on your profile.
That's true
They're
too.
looking at your page right now.
Haha, gotcha.
Yeah. Congrats. You did it.
Yep.
So
yeah,
something to keep in mind for sure. And then the other thing, before we get into like actually using your book itself as content, the other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about was what originally inspired this episode, which is that idea of repurposing other people's content.
Yeah.
So, I gave the exemplar already of Matt doing sharing the story with the poll. But I've also seen there's an author that I really like, that what she does, a lot of her Instagram stories content is like when she sees memes or something that she thinks her characters would relate to, she will share it and say like this is Jake when he's having the Sunday scaries or whatever, or something like that. And it always just makes me giggle a little bit every time I see it, where I'm like, oh yeah. And it reminds me that there's, this was a character that I liked from a book that I liked. And this is relatable and I like this. And I wonder what that author's up to. And I wonder if they've got anything else going on right now. And like, it catches my attention more often than not.
I love that stuff too. I love when I see people using like Jaws for various different like holidays or things, especially when Shark Week comes around, like the memes start surfacing of Jaws and Peter Benchley's book and, how he was the originator. So everybody can thank him for Shark Week. I love seeing, all of the memes that come out way before Halloween that have Michael Myers or Ghostface on them or things like that. So I love repurposing content and tying it back to a particular character and then having them sort of put their own commentary or spin on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's also, I think our like social media platforms lately lend itself or lend themselves really well to this in particular. Repurposing other people's content with your own responses to it. So whether that's like, God, I cannot bring myself to say X, so I'm just not going to. On LinkedIn, if you see somebody else's post and you go to share it, you can either just share it directly without adding anything to it,
right? Or
you can share it with your own thoughts,
right?
And you can like leave your own comments on it. Or on TikTok.
Yeah, you could do that on Twitter too.
On TikTok, when you stitch videos.
Right.
So it's a great way to kind of like establish yourself. Again, this is more for nonfiction than fiction, but, kind of establish yourself as somebody who knows what you're talking about in a specific field. And, kind of create that content of like, hey, I know what I'm talking about here. Instead of me creating my own original content, I'm going to like stitch somebody else's with my response or my thoughts or my expertise.
It's a tactic. It's an approach, and I like it, but you have to be prepared for potential backlash, right?
Well, with any of this.
Because if you make that your thing, if your thing is doing that, like fact checking or commenting against other people's content, that's great. It is a good tactic, and you'll get a lot of engagement in many cases, but you'll also get, if not the original posters of that content, other people that support that original poster, coming on and potentially, trolling you or wanting to do. So it's a great tactic. I think it does encourage a lot of engagement. I'm not saying it's a bad one, but I think that I don't think everybody's thick-skinned enough to use that tactic. So just, take this with whatever grain of salt or sand or whatever else you tend to use in your slogans.
I mean, I know I'm not. So I know I don't have a thick enough skin for that. So I completely agree and understand. But I think that a little bit, if you're going to be creating content on social media at all, you have to be prepared for that.
That's also fair. Yes. I mean, if you're going to play in that space, regularly with any sort of volume in terms of, the amount of content and engagement, then you're going to have to be, you okay? You're going to have to be prepared for that anyway. So that's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah. Just something to keep in mind. But I just wanted to throw those couple of ideas out there. I am going to link in the show notes 2 articles that I was reading through while outlining this episode, one from Hootsuite and one from Social Media Examiner. Both of which are great resources if you're doing social media content creation in general. So in case you've gotten somehow this far and haven't really...
Nobody has. You might as well cut the first 30 minutes of this thing.
No, it's going to be great. In case you have gotten this far and haven't really wrapped your head around what it is that we're talking about. We're talking about specifically using your book content. This idea of using stuff you've already outlined, written, things that you might have solicited like reviews or testimonials, but whatever. And even things that you had created like cover art, or if you have a book that has like charts and graphs and infographics and stuff inside of it, all of that can be used as social content in addition to what you've used it for in your book, and should be. So I will get into ideas for how you can do that, but I wanted to talk a little bit more first about the practice of doing it.
Yeah.
It does actually have value. And that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about. That's
well, of course it has value.
But we talked about it at the beginning of this
Everybody,
episode.
your book content does actually have value.
That's not what I meant.
There's value there. We promise.
That's not what I meant. Okay. Thanks so much.
All right.
We talked about it at the beginning of this episode, the idea of this is a great way for you to make it a little easier on yourself during the busy season, and also trying to fight the algorithm wars and figure out how to get engagement from people. Mm-hmm. But I would also argue that no matter when you're doing it, even if we lived in a world where the algorithm was perfect on every single platform and worked exactly the way we wanted to, and we all understood it perfectly, it still there's other reasons to try repurposing your own content this way. Could be a great way to serve as a lead magnet. You never know where the content like this that you share and create is going to wind up.
Yeah.
So if you have this little like bite-sized content that ties back to your book, you don't know where it's going to go, and it could serve as a lead magnet.
So that's a really good point, though. Let's extract that out for just 1 second. You never know where it's going to go on the internet.
Yes.
So just unpack that for a minute. It's good and bad, right? So it's a double-edged sword. It could go viral. It could not. In most cases, it won't. But you still don't know where it could go. It could go good places, could go bad places. It doesn't matter. So just like Lauren said, if there's any way you can create some sort of a watermark with your social media handle on it or your website address, or even something that's not quite a watermark that's more bold, like just make sure that it's there somewhere in that graphic, fairly prominent, so that if people do try to use that graphic without giving you credit, it's almost impossible because your website address or your social media handle or something like that is there in a way that it can't be removed or,
yes,
photoshopped
absolutely.
or something like that. Because again, you never know where that content's going to end up, good or bad.
Yep. It's also why it's a good idea to commit to your branding, especially when it comes to something like your social media handles, and have them be the same across all platform, and not something that, we've talked about this in other episodes. Like, you're not creating a profile for your book. You're not creating a new Instagram account for every book that you create.
Well, you shouldn't be.
Well, yeah. We would highly advise against you doing that. But this is why, because this kind of stuff lives forever on the internet. So if you have a post or a graphic or something that goes viral and does really well and kind of exists in the like internet zeitgeist forever and ever, you want the handle that is watermarked on it to still lead back to your page no matter when somebody is coming across it.
I would argue it doesn't live forever on the internet, which again is also potentially a drawback. But I still agree with what you're saying is again, it could live on forever depending on the channel that you posted on, or you could wake up tomorrow and it's gone forever. One way or the other, you need to protect yourself and your brand, and you really need to make sure that whenever you're putting content out there, you're doing what's best for you as an author and your brand, and not just one single specific book or, unless you only have one book and that's all you're ever going to write, it'd be a little bit odd, but that's okay.
Fair enough.
Love that.
I know. I know you do. Other things that can be useful to you, or other ways that it can be useful to you to kind of be repurposing your own content, whether it's existing content or your book content. It's a great way for you to test what kind of content you have that generates the most interest and engagement from your followers and maybe even your non-followers, which can be great if you are information gathering for a potential future book. So if you're looking for what's my next book going to be about? What's my next social media campaign going to be about? What blog am I going to pitch to somebody as a guest blog post or something like that? Knowing what kind of content resonates best with your audience is super helpful in helping you to determine what you want to lean into moving forward.
Yeah. So some examples of that could be, extracting a character out of your book and, polling your follower base to see like, hey, would you guys be interested in this particular character getting their own spinoff, or, things like that, I think are examples of kind of what you're talking about.
Yep.
With using the existing content. Obviously, when creating new content, you should use that follower base as well. So, hey, these are 5 ideas I have for the cover of my new book. Which one do you like? That's a great way to encourage people's engagement and activity, which will shoot you to the top of that algorithm. But when repurposing existing content, you might be thinking like, hey, I want to do a whole series based on this one character who's not a main character, but I think they have main character potential, or, something like that. And so that is a great way to solicit feedback and encourage engagement, which again, the algorithms right now seem to really only care about engagement for the most part. Although again, don't take my word at that. It could change tomorrow, but
yeah. Who knows? By the time this episode comes out, we'll have brand new algorithms on all platforms and a new social media channel.
Like everybody that might actually be listening to this just literally had a heart attack.
Oh, things I don't miss. It's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, last little thing. We kind of already mentioned this, but the idea that this can be great reputation building for you as well. Yeah. Whether it's, you leaning into your niche and specifically like being the voice, being the expert, being the people that come, like being the person that people come to recognize as like, oh, I want their take on something. You never know what people are thinking of you for, and when your content is going to like be top of mind for people and relevant to people that are following you on social media. Yeah. But that's kind of the goal, right? Is to become like the person or the account or the brand that people think of when they're like, like I'm looking for more information about this thing. Where can I get it from? Who is a trusted source that I can go to?
So this is how you're tying it back to niche.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody said last week at that conference I was at, I don't know if it was Connor Brown or Jeff C or one of them, but one of them said something and I really loved it. And basically what they said are the riches are in the niches.
Ooh.
So niche down as far as you can go to where you add maximum value, and that's where you will see maximum engagement and revenue intake. And then if you want to scale up from there, you can. But I love that little sort of saying that the riches are in the niches. And you're right. I mean, if you can be remembered for something very specific or sought out for something very specific and niche, I mean, that's great. Not a lot of people can get down to that level. And I think that is where you'll start to see a much faster timeline for success than just trying to go really broad on something or a topic or,
Absolutely. I am really disappointed that phrase only works if you pronounce niche like that.
Yeah, but every normal person
no, they
says
don't.
Niche.
No, they don't.
You're the only weirdo that says niche.
I absolutely am not. Niche. Oh my God.
Because you say everything in French. Je suis con.
I think that was better than I pronounced it.
Freaking Ratatouille over here. Sacre bleu.
I've never seen Ratatouille.
Shut. Can you hit the stop button on recording, please?
Only if I can go home and watch Ratatouille.
How have you not seen Ratatouille? This is, here we go again. What was the other one you hadn't seen? Peter Pan?
No, I've seen Peter Pan. Black Cauldron?
You didn't see Black Cauldron?
Yeah. Sorry.
Stop.
I haven't seen a couple.
Sword in the Stone.
Yes. Don't look at me like that. Okay, but there's two very. Oh, never mind. We are already so off topic. Let's talk about ways that you can actually use your book content as social media content. Let's talk about actual examples. This is the fun part. It took us 50 minutes to get to the fun part of the episode.
I don't know if I can get past this.
Okay.
Let's try.
All right. What if I promise that I'll watch Ratatouille before the next time I go to Disney?
You won't.
You're right, I won't. It's okay. Anyway. Ideas for using your book content. I kind of split this up into two things because I think there is some overlap between nonfiction and fiction authors, but some of these ideas are very specific to nonfiction and some are very specific to fiction.
Yeah, a lot of that's probably based on their goals too, though, right?
Yes.
So nonfiction authors oftentimes have different primary and secondary goals for their books than fiction authors do. Not that one way or the other is wrong or different necessarily, just, again, sometimes based on your goals, how you do some of these things we're going to talk about will be different and change.
Yeah, absolutely. So for nonfiction authors, one of the things that I think you see most often is using the actual content of your book as like repostable long form content, but that you kind of break it down into like the key points and ideas, like, not a bullet point summary, but that kind of idea where you take a chapter, break it down into a bullet point list, and then either turn that into one post as a long form post on something like LinkedIn, or, break that down even further and say you break a chapter down into 5 bullet points, and that's 5 separate posts.
Yeah.
You're creating content about that, whatever your specific area of expertise is, you're just kind of giving these bite-sized content pieces or longer form content pieces.
This is where I do agree with your earlier statement about not just taking a piece of content and blanket posting it across all channels the same. I do think that if you're a nonfiction author and you're utilizing, LinkedIn and one other social media channel like Instagram or X or something like that, post the long form to LinkedIn, because maybe you only post there once a week anyway, so that's okay. And maybe you post on the other channel like Instagram 4 or 5 days or 4 or 5 times in a week. So take that same piece of content, like you said, post the long form on LinkedIn, let that marinate for a week, but then break it up into the 5, bullet points or smaller posts for a daily on Instagram or X or, TikTok or whatever your other social media channel of choice is. Having more than 2 is probably a little ridiculous, but nonetheless, here's where I would agree with you, where you can take that one piece of content and repurpose it in multiple different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also going to take that a step forward and say this is also where you can be transparent about A/B testing that if you want. Because you might even be able to do that on the same platform. You might do a long form post on LinkedIn and then also a month later do 5 shorter posts on LinkedIn using that same content.
Have you seen Aristocats?
Yes.
Okay.
You just want to run through a list.
That's what's going on in my head right now.
I know. I can tell.
I feel like deja vu, though. I feel like we've had this conversation before, but
we probably have. It's okay. It's okay. You keep running through the list in your head, and I'll keep going with this episode.
All right.
You can also, in kind of a similar idea to that, if you want to do something that you're giving like specific advice for actionable steps that your followers or fans or readers of your book can take to help them accomplish a certain goal, you can turn those into social posts. If you're saying something like, your book is a guide to growing your small business on social media, and you want to do we're going to do a little mini series of how to grow your Instagram following in 10 days, and every day you're going to post one step of that and create that social content. That's almost 2 weeks worth of social content right there, especially if you're not posting it every single day. Spread it out a little bit. And then you've got people that if they're coming in on step, especially something like that, where you're doing it, you're doing part of a series and you say, this is day 5 of 10, or this is step 3 of 7, whatever, you're giving people a reason to either come back to your page for future posts or to go click on your page to see the ones that they've missed in the past.
Yeah.
So you're giving people a reason to engage with your content and engage with your profile, which is always the goal of any social media content, is for them to come learn more about you. In both of these cases, I do want to include the reminder that you should have some kind of CTA in there about your book.
You should have a CTA to buy your book, of course. That should always be in your bio as well. I don't think enough people are as forward about asking for a book sale as they should and could be. I think people sometimes get the ick about selling their own book, which is silly to me, but you should absolutely have a link to buy your book, preferably not on the Zon. That's in your bio and anywhere else for that matter, which, by the way, if you're not using ManyChat right now, you should be using ManyChat, especially on Instagram. You know what that is?
I do.
Cool. But more importantly, on any of your social media channels, if you are not frequently, continually, and on a regular basis asking people to come sign up for your email newsletter or, come to your website and do something along those lines, then you're really missing the boat. So I don't care if you don't even have an email newsletter yet, start one. At least get set up with an ESP, an email provider, and start building that contact base, because the last thing you want to do is start building a follower base on a social media channel and then lose that. 100% gone. That is rented land. It's not yours. The content you put there is not yours once you post it. Those followers are not yours. But if you can get them to sign up for your newsletter, your email newsletter, or come make a purchase from your site where you're selling direct, or some way for you to grab that information from that user, then now that's yours. And you can have a conversation or a two-way communication with them essentially whenever you want. But social media, that's not yours, and you've got to get them over to somewhere else. So yes, have a CTA to buy your book, but more importantly, forget all this other crap we're talking about. If you are not getting people from your social channels over to somewhere where you own and are in control of that data, then you need to go back and listen to some of our other episodes and then come back to this one.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really important takeaway too. I think if you're listening to this and you're like, Lauren, you're telling us to give the content of our book away for free. I'm not. I'm telling you to trade it for more valuable engagement with fans and followers or
100%.
Potential fans and followers.
Yeah.
So, in the hope that you giving them a couple of tips here will result in them buying your book or will result in them joining your mailing or your newsletter list or, whatever action it is that you want them to take. Like that's the trade.
Yeah.
Here.
That is the goal. You're right. Yeah. So you want either a purchase, an email newsletter sign up, both, something else that gets them over onto, again, a platform or a list that you control. That is worth giving away a free book or a chapter or something else, because once you now have that information to do with as you see fit, hopefully for the purposes of good, not evil, that's a whole nother ballgame,
Yeah, absolutely. A couple other ideas for nonfiction authors, content creators, content entrepreneurs, whatever you self-identify as. We've talked about both of these already, so I'm going to just really quickly pulling kind of motivational, inspiring, funny, insightful, otherwise useful quotes from your content and creating graphics or videos using those, just like the little bite-sized pieces of information that have the possibility of being shared by somebody, out of context, things that are still helping to kind of establish you as a voice in this industry, in this area, whatever it is. Similarly, the charts, graphs, infographics, things from your book, anything that is going to kind of identify you as like, this is somebody who is sharing insightful information about this particular topic.
So not posting pictures of Moodang is...
Can I confess something out loud on this podcast that
I'm
I
afraid
have not
of what's
before?
coming. I'd prefer you didn't.
I don't know where Moodang came from. All of a sudden,
Thailand,
I
think.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what I missed the phenomenon that made this a big deal, and then all of a sudden, I just opened my feed one day, and I was like, "What is this animal all over every single one of my feeds?"
But that's every viral post. Nobody knows where any of them come from. That's the whole point of this episode, really.
I guess, yeah.
Virality is not stability. Like, don't chase virality because you don't know how you're going to get it. And if you do happen to get lucky enough to have a viral post, you'll probably never get it again. You'll never know how or why you got it. Moodang doesn't know why she's so popular all over the world, and neither does her zookeepers. She is, probably for another couple of days, and then it'll be something else. But, I mean, that's really the point of this whole episode, right?
It really is. And I also love when you give me a soundbite like that. It's just great. Thank you so much for doing my job for me.
Why would you even waste brain cells trying to figure out how this became a thing?
Well, sometimes I'm curious. And sometimes there is interesting, especially that's
just
one of the
enjoy
things,
it and move on.
I guess. I don't know. Social media is a prison. Just like existence.
Just like Moodang's cage.
We are all Moodang. In a cage.
Well, on that note.
All right. One last thing the nonfiction authors can do, and then we'll talk to fiction authors. If anything in your book is some kind of process that you're trying to explain to your readers, and it's something that you can do by creating a video with a step-by-step, like whether it's a recipe where you're showing them how to make it, or like, let me create a video where I'm doing a screen capture and showing you how to create a calendar on Lulu, like whatever it is, like that's something that if you're talking through it in your book and you have a reason to create video or graphic content that you can post on social media, go for it.
No.
Wow. It's the first one. I thought we were going to get through that a lot faster, but apparently not.
Well, all right.
No. Moving on. Fiction authors. I already shared one of my favorite ones, which is sharing content that relates to your characters in some way or another.
You know what we didn't talk about though for fiction is actually sharing your characters. And
yeah.
I've seen other authors doing this. Well, it's not in your outline, so I just want to make sure we talk about this. Like your actual characters as a post.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like elaborate. You mean like saying like this is
well, I was
like,
going there.
Meet
but
this okay. Yeah. So go.
That's all right. So yeah, let's say you have a book where there's, I don't know, 5 characters that are pretty much involved throughout the entire story. That's 5 posts right there. Like introduction to characters.
Absolutely.
Whether or not somebody's even read the book, like just introducing a character could potentially draw the attention of somebody who's like, oh, wait a second. Okay, that sounds a little bit interesting. Or, even running it almost like the person I'm referring to, I'm terrible at this. I'm old. I can't remember this author's name. But what they did is they created these posts that almost look like baseball cards. Mm-hmm. So it was just their character and like a picture of their character, an artist rendition of it or whatever, and then little stats about that character in their book. And it was a really cool image, like visual. And then the caption was just like, hey, meet so-and-so. This is the secondary, tertiary, main character, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And anyways, that was, I think this particular person, their book had about 7 characters that were pretty much present throughout the entire trilogy that they had written. I think 1 or 2 maybe died off towards the end. But anyways, really cool way to create extra content.
I actually love that idea. And especially if it's something graphically that you can tie into.
I'm clocking out.
Absolutely not. Something that you can tie into your book. If there's some kind of business card graphic, baseball card, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
But as you were saying that, to your point, that's sometimes all you need to entice characters. Literally a text from my best friend last night, direct quote, the way I could not care less about the plot of a book at this point, just make one of them a little snippy and give the other one the patience of a saint, and I'll read it. Like
that's a low bar that maybe you shouldn't put your friend on Front Street like that.
Well,
that's a really low bar.
You know what? I agreed with her 100%. So
okay.
that's what I'm
to
saying.
Any authors that might be listening, please put effort into the plot, regardless of what.
Of course I'm not. But sometimes that's all it takes to get somebody interested in your book, is to say, like, here's a little character profile, and I read it and I go, ooh, I know my type. That's and I know what kind of characters I like to read about. And this sounds like a character that I love. I'm going to go click into this author's profile and see what book this character is from and see if I'm interested. I'm not saying that's going to be the only reason someone's going to pick up your book, but it is a reason for somebody to engage with finding out more about your book.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with the idea of, pulling a really popular quote from your book and putting it on like a nice graphic or a video or something, which I no one here is going to be surprised, including Matt, about this. I have absolutely read books before because of that specifically, because of seeing like somebody shared an author's Instagram post that was a quote from their book. And I looked at it and was like, don't tell me more. Okay, yeah, go ahead. And wound up reading the book because of that specifically. I can think of multiple examples of that happening.
I've definitely bought a few books. I've yet to read them, but that just speaks to my stupid TBR pile. But I've definitely purchased a few books for the same reason. Yeah. I haven't got quite to the point of reading them yet, but yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to spark somebody's interest in your work. So,
and you worked really hard on writing those really great one-liners and quotes for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Whatever the scene is, like, share them, be proud of them.
I agree. It's hard to be as clever as Lauren and I. So if you are, you should show that off.
That's so true.
Ugh. I just threw up a little bit in my mouth even saying that.
I can't believe you said that. You got that far with a straight face.
All right. This episode is going to be a little bit longer than normal, so we still got a little ways to go.
I was going to end it after this. You want to do that last little bit?
I do think that's probably important to help people get through some of that.
All right. Well, shout out to our YouTube audience.
If they make it this far.
Look, I think our audio listeners, I think it'll be under an hour, but our YouTube channel, I cannot promise that this is going to be under an hour.
Audio probably won't be either, but whatever.
We'll see.
Let's go.
Okay. Couple more ideas for fiction authors. This is one that I've talked about in the past, actually. I really like the trend that has been going on of authors doing just like a graphic that's a cover of their book with like the most compelling tropes that are included in their book. I know you hate it every time I say the word trope. I know.
No, what I hate is that you look for every opportunity to say it.
What else should I say? What else would you rather me say?
How about we just don't talk about tropes as often as we do?
Fine. Okay. Then last idea, if you have a fun reason to create video content about your book, go nuts. Whether that is reading a passage out loud, reading, maybe you have characters that have names that are difficult to pronounce, or there has been some confusion about it. Like, do a character pronunciation video. Maybe your book is that. Yeah, right. Maybe your book takes place in your hometown or takes place in somewhere that is like an actual location, and you're able to do a little like, here, I'm going to walk the street that has the bar that the characters have this scene at. So like you can go see this place that's very real. Whatever it is, like there are a lot of really fun reason to make like videos based on the content within your book.
Yeah.
Even if it's as simple as reading it out loud, acting it out. If you've got friends doing like a blind reading, maybe they haven't read the book and you'd be like, hey, do this with me and let's see how it goes. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Could be fun. Get creative with it, but use your source material as the inspiration for that rather than you trying to come up with a reel from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last thing that I wanted to talk about for all of this to close it out here is that the thing that makes all of this easy for you, it's making it less time consuming for you, it's buying you a little bit of extra free time during the holidays or whatever the case may be, is that all of this kind of content lends itself to batch creating and scheduling ahead of time.
Yes. Lends itself well to batch creating. Yeah.
Yes. So I would if you're not already doing that, I would highly encourage you to do that in general, which is not to say that you should just never be on social media, that once a month you should go batch create content, schedule it for a month, and then check back in a month later. I'm definitely not saying that you should do that.
But there are lots of ways to spend less time on social media,
yes.
And lots of people have written books or content about it. So I would seek some of that out too.
Yes.
If you're like us and you don't want to be on there every day posting and you want to really nail down the strategy and tactics that will allow you to batch create and post in a more efficient way, then seek that stuff out. People like Katie Brinkley have written about this stuff, the social shift. There's others that their whole thing is teaching people how to actually spend less time on social media, but really, encourage engagement and beat those algorithms.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if what you're looking for is, I want to spend a half an hour every day working on my professional, I want to spend a half an hour every day working on my professional social media pages. And I don't want to spend 25 minutes of that half an hour creating and scheduling or creating and posting content.
Yeah.
So this way, if you are batch creating your content, you set one day aside to create a bunch of content and schedule it to post for a week or a month or whatever it is. And then you're still using that 20 minutes, we'll say, if that hurts less than a half hour of time every day, and you're using that as organic engagement time. You're using that to reply to comments, to share other posts, to engage with followers, to do things that are giving you more of an opportunity to actually like be present on social media, and you're not spending that time creating your content and posting it.
Well, there's also a lot of great tools that'll help you do that, right? So once you have the content, which we just talked about, you already do. There are tools that can help you just batch that content out and schedule it all for being posted on various channels. And you can, for those of you that either haven't yet tried using some AI assisted tools or use those to help you with these types of activities. You can take, a chapter of your book and drop it into your favorite AI tool and say, hey, can you create 5 different social media posts that are all 200 words or less that basically give some sort of compelling synopsis of this chapter or my book.
Yeah.
And then just let AI do the work, and then you can, edit it up a little bit so it sounds a little bit more like you, and then just drop those into your favorite scheduling tool. The content's already created. You created the content. There's no shame in using AI to help you be more productive at posting that content. This is what AI should be used for. Productivity hacks, and that's it. So, start experiment with some of that stuff. Have some fun with it. Let the tools do most of the work for you.
If you're using a tool like Canva or something like that, if you're batch creating your content, create templates for this type of content. If you're going to be sharing, if you've pulled 10 quotes from your book that you're going to share over the course of the next 3 months, create the graphics for all 10 of those at once. Have them be the same graphic with just different copy plugged in.
Sure. Yeah.
It's going to help you with your brand aesthetic. We've talked about the idea of author branding and having your brand be kind of cohesive on your social media pages. It also is going to create a subconscious recognition in your fans and followers. If I'm doom scrolling and I'm not stopping to read things and I'm instead just kind of scrolling mindlessly as I'm going, and I recognize that's that graphic that is always that author that I like, sharing a quote from their current book or their work in progress or one of their other books, that might get me to stop the scroll long enough to actually read and maybe even and share the post.
Yep.
So, and that way, look at that. You got 10 graphics done in 5 minutes. All you have to do is create one version of it, and then
hell of a lot faster than us creating a podcast.
Tell me about it. Actually, don't know which one I've spent more time on.
Currently
editing our podcast episodes versus creating and scheduling Lulu social media content.
No, I just meant recording time.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, please. I could schedule I could create a whole month of social media content in the time that it's taken to record this one episode.
Yeah, so let's go. We got 2 points left.
All right. Look, we're doing our best. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? Was there anything else in here that you wanted to add to this?
No, other than, again, find yourself some good tools to help with the actual posting and scheduling, any of those productivity type actions that you shouldn't be wasting time on. Go find yourself some really good tools to do that with. And if we think about it, we'll post a few in the show notes too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Check those out. I'll definitely have some resources in there, tools and some resources that I've created, resources that other people at Lulu have created for social media content creation.
Perfect.
Done. That's
Thanks for sticking it out with us and sloshing through this 75 minutes of social media talk, content.
Yeah, let's see what
Torture.
It winds up being in the end. But right now it is 75 minutes, this episode. So
all right.
Thanks and sorry, but there is some really good stuff in there. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week for our anniversary episode.
Yay.
To learn more about this episode, check out the show notes on publishprosperpodcast.com. Publish and Prosper is brought to you by Lulu.com. To hear more episodes like this one, please like and subscribe wherever you listen. Thanks for tuning in.